I love to play baseball. I played it at every opportunity. I wanted to become a professional baseball player, but I discovered that I was nowhere near that, so therefore I became a rabbi. It was simple.
Now, what position did you play in high school?
I played third base at high school and at Yale, third base. I liked third base. You know why? Because I discovered that it was a lot easier for me to go to the left for balls than to go to the right. I found it very difficult to go to the right because you have to cross over. So I played third base.
You're right-handed.
Yes, I am.
And what was your batting average in college?
It wasn't that great. It wasn't that great. It was around 200 and something. But I enjoyed it. Our coach was a guy named Red Ralph, who played for the New York Yankees. He was also our basketball coach at the time. And I remember when I tried out for the team, he was throwing the balls from the pitcher's mound. And I was hitting them right through him. It was so much fun. He said, "Okay, you're all right." I never could hit a long ball, but I hit stuff through the infield.
All right.
I didn't go to Palestine. It was called Palestine then to be a soldier. I went to study. It was my junior year at the seminary, and I was studying at the Hebrew University. And when the United Nations declared Israel as a state and partitioned into two countries, the Arab nations attacked, 5 nations. So I did what any other American would have done at the time if he was there. I volunteered. And they gave me a machine gun from the First World War, an Austrian water-cooled Schwarzlauser. It took 4 men to man the machine gun. And that's what we did.
Wait. The machine gun was that large? It took 4 people to operate it?
Well, it was a complicated gun to shoot. You had to hold the water, you had to hold the muzzle, you had to hold the bullets, the ammunition. So we were 4 on a machine gun. I don't remember why, but I know we trained with 4.
Did you ever have to use it?
Occasionally, yeah. We were surrounded once by thousands of Arabs. I was in a small moshav, a small village. I was terrified. It was not pleasant. It was not pleasant, but we had a feeling that we resolved that we would be able to defend ourselves, which is what Israel was doing at the time. There were only 500 and some odd thousand Jews living in Israel at the time. There are now almost 8 million people in Israel. And we were attacked by 5 Arab countries. And they said, "We'd never make it, we'll never get out." The world gave us a week or 2 before they throw the Jews into the Mediterranean. But the Jews had courage, had faith, and they had to defend their homes and their loved ones, so we made it. Instead of that, they assigned me to the Marines in Parris Island, South Carolina, boot camp, and then from there they switched me to the Navy in the Mediterranean. And I was the only chaplain, Jewish chaplain in the 6th Fleet. And wherever the fleet went, there I went. We had Rosh Hashanah services in Barcelona, Spain. We had Passover services in Athens, Greece. I went to Turkey, went to Europe. Wherever they needed a Jewish chaplain, I went there. But we were not threatened because there was no war in the Mediterranean. But the 6th Fleet was there just in case somebody would attack. He was a strange man. He was very belligerent. He could be very angry and then suddenly become very pleasant.
With you?
With anybody. With anybody. He had a nightclub. And I remember once he came to services and he had a cast on his elbow. And I said to him, "Jack, what happened to you?" He said, "Well, somebody was making trouble in my nightclub, so I pushed him out." He was very belligerent. He loved dogs, dachshunds. And one afternoon, this was before the Kennedy assassination, he came to my home and put all the dogs out of his car, little dogs, little puppies, beautiful dogs. And he said, "Rabbi, take a dog." I said, "Thank you very much, Jack, but I really don't want another dog. I already had a dog." And one of my kids said, "Oh no, Daddy, we want that's a beautiful dog." So I said, "All right." We took the dog and they enjoyed that dog very much. The dog lived for many, many years. As far as I know, he was never married. I'm sure he was never married. He had no family. He had a sister or sisters and a brother, came from Chicago. He was raised in a broken home. His parents were alcoholics and they divorced when he was about 2. He ended up in some kind of a home, and he had a very rough time growing up. Had very little education. He had many idiosyncrasies. He always wanted status because he never had status. And policemen and journalists and photographers gave him status. and he would hang out with them. That's how he got into the jail in the first place. He happened to be walking by. He certainly didn't intend to kill Oswald. He never even knew Oswald would be there. At the time, Oswald was being transferred from the city jail to a county jail. He saw a lot of people standing around, and he went in. They all knew Jack Ruby because the police all knew he used to come to his nightclub. He used to give them food and drinks. And he came in, he stood there, he carried a gun. He always carried a pistol because he emptied the cash register of his nightclub the night before, and he wanted to make sure the money wouldn't be taken. And he walked in, he saw Jack Ruby leering, and he went crazy, became a misguided patriot, and pulled the trigger.
He saw Oswald leering.
He saw Oswald leering, right. And he had seen Oswald the night before being interviewed, and he was leering also. And he said to himself, how can that man kill that president that I loved so much? I'm convinced there was no collusion, there was no connection between Jack Ruby and anybody else. I asked him many, many times that question, and he said there was no connection, no collusion. I did it because I was angry. I wanted to eliminate the man who killed my president. I wanted to prevent Jackie Kennedy from having to come to Dallas for a trial. And so he ended up in prison. I saw him the next day in prison. They let me come whenever I wanted to as a chaplain, as a rabbi. And the first thing I said to him was, Jack, why did you do it? He said, I did it for the people of America. This was the thing to do, Texas justice. And I used to visit him quite often. I visited him weekly for a long time. I brought him prayer books during Passover. I brought him a Haggadah and matzah. And he was deteriorating in prison. He became very depressed, very morose. I remember one time I walked in, he ducked underneath the table there. He said, Rabbi, duck under the table with me. They're after us. They're boiling our people in oil. Another time he said to me, you know, they're not accusing me of killing Oswald. I said, they're not? He said, no, they're accusing me of killing Kennedy. He wanted very much to have the Warren Commission interview him. And I worked with a lawyer on the Warren Commission to get him his interview. He claimed he was innocent, and I believe he was at least innocent of having a collusion. Obviously, he was the one who pulled the trigger.
What do you believe happens after you die?
That's a wonderful question. The Jewish people don't believe in a physical immortality. We don't believe there's a heaven and there's a hell. We're much more interested in living as good a life as we can in this world, and believing in God, know that life doesn't end at death. In some way, life continues. But we're concerned more about this world than we're concerned about the next world. If you talk to 3 rabbis, you'd get 4 different opinions.